I was not originally planning on putting the watchOS 7 beta on my personal Series 4. This is my only Apple Watch, so no backup, but that was mainly because I thought the only features would be like, my watch tells me how to wash my hands now. Gee, thanks, Apple. But once I started reading about other experiences people were having with watchOS 7, I realized that kind of the most substantial updates were not talked about on stage. So I'm going to talk about them today. And yes, it very much leads into what the Series 6 has in store for us. Let's begin. Alright, so first off, let me just say the most exciting thing that I thought I was going to get with watchOS 7 turned out to not be a thing, because I saw one report claiming, and it was kind of true, that you could customize Control Center on the Apple Watch, and they finally let you remove certain options, which I was like, hey, that's really nice, thank you, because I bought the stainless steel watch just because I like the sapphire glass, I like the look of it. I don't care for the cellular support. For one, Mint Mobile doesn't support it, so get on it, Mint, but also I just don't see the need for cellular on my watch, and yet there's a dedicated cellular button in Control Center, and I thought with watchOS 7 they would finally let me remove that. You know, if you don't have a cell plan, I feel like that button shouldn't be there. And also there's other things in there that I wanted to remove that I'm just not using very much, and they're always getting in the way whenever I swipe up to see Control Center, and I finally install it and find out that they basically only let you remove the things that I need to be there, and the only things that they don't let you remove are the things that I want to remove. So I was a little bit flustered on that, but yes, certain toggles in Control Center can now be flat out just eliminated, and you can add them back later. But yeah, that was a change I was excited to see, but ultimately kind of let down on. The other big change that they did not really talk that much about on stage was the animations. Holy crap, did the Apple Watch steal a page of the OnePlus playbook? Because man, going to the home screen, opening apps, and changing things around, just everything has been super turned up when it comes to the speed of animations and jumping through apps and things like that. It very much was jarring at first, but the more I started using it, the more I kind of liked it. It started to feel, again, like using a OnePlus device when everything just opens and launches as quickly as possible, and it definitely gives a very snappy, fluid feeling to the Apple Watch that wasn't there before. You know, this was not a problem I realized I had, but now, if you compare the speeds to what the old Apple Watches used to look like, oh man, it feels so sluggish. Everything feels so delayed and laggy. In a way, it's almost like watchOS was on 30 FPS before, and now it's at 60 FPS. I know it actually isn't, but still, just the animations between opening apps and things like that, I think was a really smart way for Apple to give the illusion of the operating system feeling much faster and much smoother, especially when they have removed a big feature. And this, I'm very surprised they didn't want to talk about on stage, but I think it's a giant fundamental shift for the Apple Watch in general. They have essentially eliminated the use of Force Touch on watchOS now. So when I press hard on my watch face, it no longer single-handedly opens up all the different Apple Watch faces to choose from. Now you can just press and hold on a watch face to activate. You don't need to press hard. And yes, when you get a bunch of notifications, you can just clear them by scrolling up. They just put a button at the top of notifications now that says clear all. Also, when you're in iMessage, if you want to compose a new message, you don't force touch anymore. There's just an option at the top of all your messages. If you want to compose a new email, they put a button there. There were a bunch of use cases for Force Touch that basically have been redesigned with adding a menu or adding a little button on the display, and I can understand why some people might not like this. It's very similar to what happened with iOS 13 betas last year, when we discovered that Force Touch and 3D Touch in general had essentially been removed or redesigned in most ways so that you don't need it. And of course, that happened right before the iPhone 11 Pro dropped and did not have 3D Touch anymore, which a lot of people are still upset about, but I think for the better, Apple realized that if they remove 3D Touch from the iPhones, they can increase the battery life, because for one, the display panel is not as thick as before, because that part of the display that measures pressure sensitivity, of course, costs money and also costs them thickness. And ultimately, if you can redesign your operating system in a way that doesn't require so much pressure sensitivity knowledge, overall, I think it allows you to do more with the hardware. So that has me thinking, I'm pretty sure that the Apple Watch Series 6 is not going to have any kind of Force Touch. And no, for the record, I don't think this is a bug because it's a developer beta 1. This is a very intentional design shift that I'm noticing now between lots of different apps and them removing the option that used to be a Force Touch, which has now been replaced with a button. That's not a bug, okay? That's not something that Apple went, oops, forgot about Force Touch. For design continuity and wanting to make all Apple Watches work the same for everyone, so there's not multiple ways to use the same operating system, that's why they've eliminated Force Touch, of course, even on devices that have it. You know, even the first generation Apple Watch had Force Touch, but hey, at least watchOS 7 only works on the Series 3, 4, and 5, so if you're on the Series 2, you got nothing to worry about. You can continue to enjoy Force Touch for the rest of your life. But I think for the better, similar to removing 3D Touch on the iPhone, this is probably going to end up being worth it for the Apple Watch users, because what I've noticed with average everyday consumers is that I usually have to tell them what Force Touch or 3D Touch is. Most people don't just naturally know that. It's a lot easier to tell someone like, well, just scroll down and hit that button that says clear all, instead of, oh, you got to press really hard on the display and then press a button, which is what it's been for a long time, and a lot of people just flat out don't know that's there. So I think in the long run, this does make the operating system a little bit easier to use and a little bit easier to understand. In the short term, yes, us tech enthusiasts and people who love the pressure sensitive displays, this is going to annoy us because we're used to using our watch a certain way. But frankly, like I said earlier, the fact that the animations have been sped up between apps so much, it really doesn't feel like you're losing time. In fact, sometimes having that button there is actually saving you a step, because now when you open the app, you're just one tap away from composing a new message, or you're one tap away from clearing all notifications, which used to be 2 taps away. It used to mean pressing hard and then pressing again. So I don't think this removal of Force Touch is actually wasting time. It's not making anything slower, other than maybe activating different watch face options. But honestly, I've noticed with that, I typically just swipe between watch faces anyway, and that doesn't utilize Force Touch. So I completely get why some Apple Watch users might be annoyed by this change, but in the end, I think it's going to end up being worth it, because if it's true that the Series 6 or the Apple Watch SE, neither of them are going to have Force Touch capability, I think that means there's a good chance we could see big battery life improvements, as that appears to be the only running rumor for the Apple Watch Series 6 is better battery life. And if they can thin down that display by not including a pressure sensitive sensor, I think that could result in substantially better battery life than before. And if not, maybe this is to make room for some other health feature, like a blood oxygen sensor or glucose monitoring of that kind of thing. We don't know exactly what type of hardware they're going to pack into the next gen Apple Watch, but I'm guessing there won't be a Force Touch layer, as watchOS 7 will ship with it by default, and watchOS 7 currently makes absolutely no use for Force Touch. It may give you the illusion of Force Touch, because when you press really hard for a while and it activates the Apple Watch face options, you think you're still using Force Touch, but what I've discovered is that if you press really hard but not very long, it won't activate like it did before, and you can also just press and hold very lightly and still activate those options. So essentially, Force Touch is all removed, it's completely gone, and ultimately, I think it's for the best. I'll miss you, Force Touch. You were really cool and you made a lot of sense in the early days, but as more and more people are buying Apple Watches and Apple's trying to make features and buttons and steps a lot closer than they used to be, this makes the most amount of sense. It should allow for better battery life or more hardware features, and everyone, I think, will appreciate those in time. So those are probably the biggest things I had to say about watchOS 7. Obviously, you guys know there's the new dance workout, there's the new share your watch faces feature and stuff like that. This wasn't meant to be a video diving into every single change, but those are the ones that I felt like weren't getting highlighted or talked about enough. And if there's other features you guys enjoy about watchOS 7 that I'm just not seeing, feel free to hit me up on Twitter, join my Discord, and we can chat more about it there. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I'll see you in the next one.